Okay, right now, your team is paying a tax that you don't see. And it shows up in the ideas that they don't share with you, the mistakes that they hide from you, the truth that they soften before it reaches you. The latest data shows that just 29% of employees trust their immediate manager. 29%. And that gap between you and them, that's not a communications problem. That's a psychological safety issue. And it's costing you more than you think. Today, we're going to start taking some steps to fix it. Welcome to Roll Call with Cujo. Is your team playing to win, or are they just running out the clock? And what's your role in all of this? Fellow leaders, welcome to Roll Call with Cujo, a place for leaders who want to win bigger. Let's together get ready, let's prepare. Let's go. Okay, friends, welcome back to Roll Call in this series, and now we're formally on episode 3 of this reinvigorated version. We've talked about debriefs. We've talked about the framework that's necessary to help us as a team learn. We've talked about standards. We've talked about what it is that sets us up to be able to debrief, knowing what it is that we're measuring against, understanding what the common set of agreements are that propel us into execution and that give us the ability to practice accountability well. Now, today, we talk about the foundation for all of this. And if you think about it, what we're talking about today, it's not some soft topic, psychological safety, but rather it's probably the most expensive blind spot in modern leadership. And sort of my promise is we're gonna leave today with this episode with one takeaway that's going to help us to start building it better, so that it starts to enable us to do what it is that we demand of our teams, and that is innovate our way into a new tomorrow. So I'd like to begin episode 3 by giving you some statistics that I find really, really interesting. And I'm just going to read these to you pretty rapid fire, okay? So this is what we've pulled, 2026 numbers. If you're watching this in 27 or beyond, I probably need to go back and update. But in 2026, we're sitting at a position where global employee engagement is stagnated at 20%. Last time that I checked, the actively disengaged number was 18%, and manager engagement has dropped to 22%. So that's a bad status quo. And then you add to it what I talked about in the introduction. Only 29% of employees trust their immediate manager. That's really, really bad. Now you look at the management team. 71% right now of senior and mid-level leaders report operating under high or extreme stress. That's a problem. Then you've got this issue, fragmented teams. They score 40% lower on innovation because psychological safety is the prerequisite for creative risk-taking. McKinsey, they list a debrief deficient culture as a top 5 organizational performance killer, because ultimately, without psychological safety, blame replaces analysis, and we're not learning. And if we're not learning, we're not navigating disruption well. And all of this is that ultimately the cost of a low safety team, it's not theoretical, it's already in your P&L. And you're paying for it in a variety of different ways. When folks aren't engaged, they're not doing what it is that you're paying for. When they're actively disengaged, they're actually working to harm your interests. A lot of the folks that are disengaged, they're looking for other places to work. They're not teaming the way that they need to. They're not highlighting the things that they should be. They're not contributing the way that you're paying them to, and you're paying for it. You're paying the price. All of us are paying the price for it. We're not nearly the kinds of teams that we need to be. And so then the question is, how do we get there? And by the way, let me just tell you, in the work that I've done through the years, probably one of the biggest takeaways in all of the things that we've done, the workshop settings that we did, but really in the implementation programs, the eye-opening moment is so many people tell us, my team of instructors, I really didn't realize what a big issue psychological safety was until we started talking about it. I really didn't understand how big of an issue psychological safety was until I recognized how little of it had. And I've had people tell me flat out, I've got teammates that are withholding, they're actively lying, they're not contributing the full truth of what's happening. And if you don't have the full truth, your analysis is incomplete. Best case, it's inaccurate, worst case, and it's not leading to a brighter tomorrow. So how do we build it? A couple of things. We here at Team VMAX Group are all about frameworks. And there are frameworks tied to how it is that we build psychological safety. And if we were to go and try to spend some time learning, if I would recommend to you two authors, two instructors, two PhDs, two folks that are deep in the world of psychological safety. Number one would be Dr. Amy Edmondson. The first book that I would read is The Fearless Organization. Such a great book. You'll absorb it in about an hour and a half, maybe, and you'll go back and reread it multiple times, and you'll be taking notes and highlighting and it's got an assessment in the book that you can run with your team. It was the reference that helped inform a debrief to win. The second author that I would recommend, the second subject matter expert, Dr. Timothy Clark, and his 4 stages of psychological safety. And what I want to do is spend just a minute talking Dr. Clark and discuss the framework that he's got, because so many people say, hey, I don't even know where to begin, and I'm not sure that we can ever get there, and this is such a big thing, it's going to take forever to do so. He's made it very actionable. Okay, very, very actionable. He's got a simple graph that's bounded by permission and respect on the 2 axes that shows this evolution really through 4 stages that gets us into psychological safety. And I'll briefly cover them here. We talk about them at length in our Top Gun Teamwork program. The first stage is inclusion safety. That's where members of the social collective, the team, they accept you and me as one of their own. You've got a shared identity. You're now one of us kind of a thing. It's really, really important. And that inclusion safety is given by the organization, given by the leadership. It's something that it doesn't have to be asked for. Second stage is learner safety. And learner safety is where the new member who's now become part of the team, who's been given inclusion safety, is now told and understands that as part of the learning journey, they're going to make mistakes, and it's okay. It's okay to go out there and to not be perfect at this thing day one because you just joined us. You got some road out in front of you to figure things out. You're going to stumble and fall, and it's going to be okay. And again, that has to be given by the organization, by the leader. It can't be demanded because it doesn't work if it's demanded. Next step is contributor safety, and that's where you've earned the right to be able to go forth and do your job without being micromanaged. You've earned the right to be able to contribute using your gifts and talents to the capability that you can bring, and that's something that's earned. Like, you wouldn't hire me to come work for you and whatever it is that you do unless it's leadership development, and allow me to contribute day one because probably I've not been trained on how you do the stuff that you do. And there's stuff that has to be, I have to earn the right to be trusted to go forth and do. Good. And then the fourth stage, the final stage, is challenger safety, where ultimately everybody that's earned it has the right to challenge the status quo without fear of reprisal. And that's a very, very simple overview of just what those different stages are. I would encourage you to go in and to dig deeper into this. His book, The 4 Stages of Psychological Safety by Dr. Clark. I mean, it's another one. If you're on a flight that lasts more than an hour, you can probably finish it if you're a semi-decent reader. And it just makes sense. It's all laid out in perfect order. He's just got a new edition that I saw on Amazon. And so he's put a lot of time, energy, and thought into this. It's really good stuff. So there it is. We got a framework. We have a basic understanding of what it takes in order to be there. But I'd offer even something more simple than that framework that helps us to get to where it is that we need to be. And it's ultimately how we at Team VMAX Group decide who it is that we're going to support, who it is that's actually capable of debriefing to win. And it ties to this. Psychological safety always starts with the leader. We as leaders, we have to go first. We have to model the behaviors that we want our teammates to emulate. Meaning that if we want our teammates to be vulnerable, we want them to admit to mistakes and weaknesses, we want them to tell the truth when it hurts, we have to start that way. Because if we can't do that, our teammates see that and they understand that it's probably not safe for them to do it either. And so they're just going to go into defensive mode. And that's a really big issue. And I'll tell you, the very first client that I ever had, and when it was just a party of one here at VMAX Group, it was just me. I was discussing with a potential prospect, the CEO of an organization, what this whole debrief concept is that I envisioned deploying to him. The very first time that I've done this in business. And I was talking to him about his leadership style, and he said something to me that was really impressive. He said, "Oh, listen, Cujo, when it comes to vulnerability, I feel like it's a very important leadership trait. In fact, last year we didn't hit the goals that we had set for the year. And I remember at the end of the year convening an all company meeting and getting up on stage in front of everybody and saying, the reason for it is my fault. I let us down. And here's the mistakes that I made that cost us our ability to hit the goal. And here's what I've learned from those mistakes that I've made. And here are the changes that I'm implementing to help us to be able to be confident we're going to hit the goal this year. But do not hang your heads in shame or blame, whatever. This one's on me. The fact that we didn't hit it, that's my fault." I said, "Well, okay, brilliant. Like this debrief thing, it's going to work for you. 100% guaranteed because you've got the vulnerability that's necessary." 6 debrief to win core values, by the way. And number 1 is vulnerability. And I mention that because when you look at what psychological safety is, according to Dr. Clark, whose work has really heavily influenced my work out there in implementation, he defines psychological safety as an environment of rewarded vulnerability. And so if we demand vulnerability, we have to start as leaders by being able to be vulnerable. We have to be vulnerable in order to take ownership of the failure. And so we've got to go first. Every single debrief that I have ever been a part of, the team leads, it doesn't matter what the rank was, it doesn't matter what the qualifications were, it doesn't matter how many mid kills they had in Desert Storm or whatever, it doesn't matter what the credibility factor was. The ultimate credibility factor was their ability to be vulnerable in front of the rest of us. And them leading with vulnerability, their ability to be honest in front of the rest of us made it possible for us to be honest in return. We weren't in fear of reprisal. We weren't in fear of being attacked. We weren't in fear of being punished. We weren't in fear of losing our jobs. We actually recognized that was the standard. Vulnerability is demanded here. We gave vulnerability because our leaders modeled it. Good. The second thing that I'll say about psychological safety when it comes to how it is we're going to bring it to life beyond the 4 stages that Dr. Clark offers is we've got to invite it and we've got to make it one of the things that's a requirement. In other words, if you just tolerate a bunch of people sitting around on the heels of whatever difficult discussion, saying nothing, twiddling their fingers, looking at their shoes, withholding, then it's your fault, right? So we have to make it a demand. We have to explain that this is a job requirement. We need to be able to have people that contribute, and we have to make that part of the feedback that we give is whether or not people are doing so to reinforce the idea that we all need to be vulnerable. And I'm through the years, I've asked people, how is the implementation of this whole methodology that we've taught you working years after we're gone? And oftentimes, CEOs have admitted to me that things have kind of waned a bit. And when I ask what's changed, the answer is, well, I really haven't demanded that anybody does it. And since the demand signal isn't there, folks default, even with the best of intent, they default to the easier option, which is just to do nothing. And so if it's not a requirement, if it's not a demand signal from us, it's probably not going to be lived. And so that's the second. We have to make it a requirement that people speak up and that we measure against it. And then the final piece is, if psychological safety is an environment of rewarded vulnerability, we have to come back and reward it. When somebody then does what we've demanded of them, they've spoken up, they are vulnerable, they reveal an uncomfortable truth. We have to be careful on how it is that we respond, and it's got to be very intentional. Somebody admits to something that's absolutely horrible, they're revealing an uncomfortable truth that might even shock and surprise you because you had no idea that this was the case. If your face immediately goes into a frown, if you immediately come back and you just look like you want to kill somebody, if you come back and you're like, what the heck are you talking? Promise you, you've just killed it. You've wiped out psychological safety. And so when somebody reveals something that we've demanded of them, when we're finally getting to the full truth of what's happening around here, we need to light up. Tone, facial expressions, and the way that we respond, that has to reinforce the good that has just happened so that we don't kill it. Power move might be saying, really appreciate that insight. That is some quality stuff. Thank you very, very much for contributing. And again, as we talk modeling behavior, when people see us react in a positive way to an uncomfortable truth, they say, okay, look at this guy. He doesn't punish me for my vulnerability. I feel like it's actually a positive over here, and ultimately, folks are willing to contribute again. You flip it. You come back and attack somebody for revealing the truth the very first time. Guarantee they're never going to do it again. And what that requires from us is tremendous emotional intelligence, the ability to recognize, oh, I'm about to lose my mind here. I better not do so. It requires us to be able to put the brakes on, to be able to self-regulate before we go over the line and capsize this thing. And one of the things that I always recommend when it comes to debriefing, with the idea towards maintaining psychological safety, is to have a deputy debrief lead. Like if you're leading a debrief, for example, and you're conscientious about doing it the right way, have somebody whose assignment it is, somebody who you trust, maybe a fellow leader who's in the debrief with you, whose job it is to monitor your behaviors, who's in a position to be able to put the brakes on things before they go overboard. You start to lose your mind and you don't even realize it. And their job is to say, hey, excuse me, real quick, my friend, can we take a quick bio break? I really have to use the restroom, and this would be a perfect time to do it. That might there's just those words are signal enough. Uh-oh. Uh-oh, I might have been in a position right now to break psychological safety. And so we take the break, we do whatever, we recage the brain before things get out of hand. It's a good technique. We used it at the fighter weapons school. I highly recommend it here, so that we make sure that we don't ever violate it. Good. So there's some things to chew on, but ultimately what I recommend is go back and study some Edmondson, go study some Clark, go to YouTube and listen to the two of them talk about this. And when you do, what you're going to find is Dr. Edmondson is very clear that psychological safety is not some magical shield from accountability. It isn't the thing that people use as a defensive mechanism to say, oh, whoa, let's not make things awkward around here. Oh, you're hurting my psychological safety by revealing the fact that I didn't do my job or whatever. No. She says very clearly, it's not about creating a condition of nice. It's about creating a condition, rather, where we're comfortable being uncomfortable. And we have to all understand that. Good. So go study the major actors in this world, Edmondson, Clark. It'll be time well spent. Now let's talk about some traps. Let's talk about some traps when it comes to psychological safety. One trap is saying, hey, I've got an open door policy, where we just say it's safe to speak up, which is not the same as making it safe. That's a totally different thing. Like saying, all right, like my door is always open, you can tell me anything. It's not the same as manifesting vulnerability in front of everybody. It's not the same as inviting people to speak up and then rewarding them for doing so. It's just a blanket statement that most of us have been taught to say at some time or another, and it may or may not mean anything. There's a trap of shooting the messenger. Some of us are naturally inclined towards that, and I promise you this, one bad reaction, honest feedback, poisons the team for a super long time. So again, EQ, really, really important. Cannot afford to shoot the messenger. I suppose you could call it the performance safety trap. Asking for input, but not being curious. And your team can tell. They know when you're being disingenuous. They know when you're just saying words as opposed to really meaning what you say. And then the final piece of this, and it goes back to what I've noticed in my exploration of this, trying to bring this to life, is psychological safety is not softness at all. Rather, it's the ability to have the hard conversations that need to take place, to include the you're not doing the job conversation, because the relationships can withstand them. They can make it through them. And so if you find that you can't have those conversations, it means that you probably don't have psychological safety and there's work to do. Okay, so how can we take action on this? How can we start working to bring this to life? One idea would be to get a copy of The Fearless Organization, only because I believe that it's a must read for every leader and every teammate in every organization, and to flip to whatever page it is. And I feel like it's before page 50, like maybe it's like page 32 comes to the top of my mind. I'm off, I'm sure. But anyway, Dr. Edmondson's got a series of questions that we can ask, and there's a little range scale from like 1 to 7 if memory serves, and you can kind of run a little assessment and see what's the state of psychological safety over here. My guess is it's not as high as you think. So that's an option, but it requires buying a book, probably $15 or less, taking some time, finding the page, all that kind of stuff. Another one would be to manifest some vulnerability in front of your teammates while you talk about how important it is that we do this. And by opening up and revealing a critical mistake that you made that cost your team, talking about it out loud, being very, very specific, and then mentioning how this is the way that we want to do things moving forward, because only through that vulnerability can we reveal the facts that can help us to learn. So that's a really important one. Next thing that we can do, having modeled that, is to close with a question. Hey, what's a risk that I'm not seeing right now? And sit in silence and let the team start to talk. And when somebody starts to talk and the silence is broken, thank them, reward them for sharing. And then let's figure out what steps we're going to take to mitigate that safety risk. And maybe we just do this on a regular basis for 30 days and see what ends up happening at the team level. Maybe ultimately we debrief it. Good. As I look at the end of every Top Gun teamwork cohort that we run, and I see what are the top 3 things that you've changed as a result of the course. What are the revelations that have occurred to you as you've gone through the course? Psychological safety is always up there at the top. Don't have as much of it as we thought. Really need more of this. It's not having it is hampering our ability to do. We have to really build it. That's a major emphasis side. We're working on this, etc. Psychological safety is a really big deal. In my workshops, when I go speak to CEOs and key leaders, I explain what psychological safety is. I give them Clark's definition, an environment of rewarded vulnerability. And I always ask leaders, say, how many of you were raised professionally, came up professionally in an environment of rewarded vulnerability? And in a week's worth of presentations, I might have a hand or two go up, and that's over multiple days with lots of people in the room, because it just doesn't exist. And this is the foundation. In its absence, we cannot plan correctly because people are withholding. We cannot debrief correctly because people are withholding. When they're withholding, we're not innovating and planning, and we don't have the full truth, so the analysis is incomplete. We've got to get psychological safety figured out in order to be the kinds of teams that we need to be in order to navigate the disruptions of the now and of the future. Okay, so in closing, your team is already telling you a truth. The question is whether they're telling that truth directly to you or to somebody else on the way home. And what we need to do together is build the safety so we, as leaders, can hear the full truth in order to enable the team to be its very best. Good. All right. Psychological safety, that's something that we're going to continue to hammer on. And as we look to the future, we're continuing to grow. And that's all that we want from this week. And thank you so much for being here again with me. If you enjoy what it is we're talking about, please hit the subscribe button and know that I look forward to speaking with you again next week. Okay, you've got the playbook. Now go run the play. Don't just listen, act. And thank you for joining Roll Call with Cujo. If you found that this was helpful, please leave us a review. Please click subscribe. And most importantly, please share it with a leader who needs it. Now let's get back out there and keep winning.